What's going on, guys? Jacob Orth back here with another video of Jacob's Life in Vegas. Coming to you guys today with a video that's going to be kind of tough for me to do. I'm over here by the strip right now. I'll flip it around for you. So, as I call it, the most famous street in the world. Sun's starting to go down behind the Mandalay Bay. But got an important video for you guys today. I've actually done a video similar to this before, probably.
It seems like every passing few months, Jacob increasingly is starting to realize that Vegas is not what it used to be. Vegas is sinking. Vegas overall is changing for the worse. This is not an attack video in Jacob. I will criticize him, but he's done certainly a lot of good work. All right. Now, you may argue that he's biased. He gives you half-truths. He talks too much good things. He promotes certain things. I hear you, but his videos are changing, and it seems like he's starting to get the picture. He's starting to understand what's going on. So let's see how he has changed over the years. So you can see here how a lot of his videos was really so much about talking about the benefits of living in Vegas, the good things, a lot of different qualities. But as you can see over time, you'll begin to notice that he brings a lot of his criticism videos. Bad neighborhoods, no more free drinks, 5 things destroying Vegas. And now when you look at his newer videos, you will find that, well, look, 5 things destroying Vegas. And he doesn't have a lot to talk about, so he just does all his live videos. Now, he's just like me, criticizing the political establishment, the Harry Reid Airport. So, what is going on, folks? Is he waking up? I have made positive and negative videos for many years, unlike this gentleman. Even before I moved there back several years ago. Me and Jacob, we have a lot in common. We talk about things that's going on in Vegas, and we've moved in the last decade, and we're both from California. You know, we were just sick of the policies of California.
About a year and a half ago, about 5 things destroying Las Vegas. And needless to say, a lot has changed in that year and a half. Some stuff is still the same, but there's definitely some stuff that has changed.
Well, here is really the harsh reality of Vegas. Vegas did not have a real recovery. You see, folks, under our establishment, Vegas was perhaps arguably the hardest hit about 10 years ago, and it probably is now. So we didn't really have the real booming times coming back in Vegas in the last 10 years. We did not see the residential high-rises come back. We didn't see all these mega construction hotels come back to the spotlight. Why? You know, I really miss the 90s and the 2000s of Vegas, the booming empire, all these amazing projects. Is that many cities, not just across the US, but around the world are really sinking. Seattle, San Francisco, LA, New York, Chicago. But of course, the problem with Vegas is that it doesn't really have a lot of the big city cosmopolitan lifestyle. At the same time, you get a lot of the corruption of the big cities. So let's just go on further in his videos, and you could see here that the unemployment rate is really high. They're not giving out their benefits. They're doing all these shutdown activities. The mask mandates are really, really high. I get that. Pools are open. He'll talk about in the gyms, but not obviously in the shower section of the gym. And you talk about the crime wave. I've certainly have talked about this, and I will definitely talk about more about this very, very soon. And, you know, I think we'll all definitely agree that there are some recent moves been done to alleviate the problem. But yet again, he has more and more negative points. He talks about the resort fees. The resort fees are certainly a problem. I have talked about that. But once again, the problem is that the consumer base has changed. Not to mention the fact that, well, you can arguably say people are very, very naive. And it's pretty shocking they're doing this despite a lot of the Airbnbs that you can get all over the Las Vegas Valley.
I think shortchanged by their own government. Well, even before that, we can talk about something that a lot of people probably didn't realize, that, you know, the Raider Stadium we have here, the Las Vegas Raider Stadium, that was funded by the room tax, tens of millions of dollars of that came from locals. Some of you probably remember when that was trending in the news a lot a couple years ago, that, oh, it's only tourists going to pay that tax, right? It's only people that are going to be staying here on the Strip, or people staying in Fremont Street. It's all the tourists paying that room tax. Don't worry, it's just the tourists. None of the locals are going to pay a dime, right? That was what a lot of you were sold.
I think the vast majority of people knew that this stadium was going to be a scam. And the thing about the stadium thing was that people from the left and right were heavily opposed to it. Now, what's really sad about this, and I think the biggest concern, and I've talked about this for years about Las Vegas, is that the problem is not the politicians. Problem is that Jacob is not telling you why Vegas has so much dysfunction and corruption. Because it's the political establishment that's the problem. The same political establishment that gave Reid, Sandoval, Sisolak, and all these other buffoons. This is the same political establishment that's pumped by Wall Street, the casino elites, namely Jim Murren. I've done a number of videos about him. You can look back. And not to mention the votes that are being pumped by the Culinary Union. So as a result of this political establishment, and as a result of very naive, gullible, or I guess you can say, not so willing to fight kind of a people, the result is they get screwed. Now, they were willing to fight the Red Rock development, but they were not willing to fight this. And the same goes with a lot of the horrible other policies. And I've talked about how, as well, many years ago, that this was going to rip off the consumer, that people who live in these short-term properties are going to pay, and many of them typically are residents. And by the way, a lot of, I think, General Fund Rainy Day Fund of Clark County went to the stadium. This is the thing. And I just recently posted how the other issue is the way the government is structured. Okay, having a very large county board and a lack of city government, and with all the districting going on and lack of other available counties, is also the problem. Not to mention that 75% of the people who live in the county cover the entire population of the state. So I've done videos about the Raider Stadium. This is back in October 17th, 2016. I've talked to you about how Sheldon Adelson, all these casino elites were behind it. Sisolak was behind it, not to mention Sandoval. Look, they're part of the same team. That's the thing. So over time, Jacob is really starting to realize that how dirty, how dysfunctional this area really, really is. And I can bet you, when more of this COVID pain goes along, more of this economic issues, the real estate disruption, there's going to be more ugly surprises. There's no question about it. But again, the problem is people don't fight back.
That's what a lot of us were sold. That's what a lot of us were told. The reality of it is that this first group I'll talk about, paying the room tax, is not as big a deal as the next group I'm going to talk about. The first group is, yeah, if you're Nevada and live in another part of the state, you come here for vacation, you're paying that tax. If you live in the area and you're doing a staycation, yes, you are paying that tax. But a lot of you probably didn't know that a lot of these weekly stays, for the first 30 days, if you stayed there at a Budget Suites or Seagull Suites or one of those, you had to pay that tax also. And I know some of you that have come here and moved here have had to stay at those places because you couldn't find a place to live, you're in a bad financial position, so maybe you're...
And by the way, it's not just hurting the poor. In case if you haven't noticed, a lot of the people who live in Seagull Suites is actually people who are African descent. They're blacks. And the really sad part is that the Nevada political establishment has done a lot to promote social justice. But yet, they're not willing to tell you that how blacks are disproportionately paying taxes for the stadium. Now, of course, you can argue that blacks are more likely to use sports entertainment and use them. But nevertheless, of course, the establishment only uses the race card when it fits them. So where are especially, those politicians covering this issue. It's complete hypocrisy.
Credit wasn't good, so you took that just because you could get something. You paid part of that tax to the tunes of tens of millions of dollars is estimated to have been taken from our working poor who are just one step above being on the street and being homeless. And some homeless people do stay there when they can. So people, some of our poorest residents, actually had to pay that tax and pay into that.
Well, and that's really the thing I just wanted to talk about. In case if you haven't noticed, Nevada doesn't really have progressive taxation, it has regressive taxation. I've talked to many, even Democrats in Nevada about this, and they're starting to realize this. So if anybody who tells you Nevada is a progressive state, not really, not on many of the economic issues. It certainly is when it comes to issues like immigration and a few other things, but it's not progressive when it comes to that regard. And it's not even a real conservative state either. It probably used to be, but not so much anymore. It's a corporate fascist state. And that can be explained for America and much of the world as a whole. So this whole left and right division is the problem. You don't understand what's going on.
Tens of millions of dollars. A lot of people probably didn't even realize that.
Raiders move into Las Vegas. I know you're not a fan of it because you wonder where in the world do these cities get the money. Tell me.
Because they rip off poor people to build these stadiums. You know, it's amazing. We have an awful public school system. We can't pay our teachers and things like that, but they come up with money.
When you look at that.
Well, here's the thing, though. The problem is we live in a society where people are so crazy about sporting events. In fact, I think certain places that should be publicly funded are plazas, are public places. We don't have real public places in this part of the world, especially Las Vegas. Have you ever been to, in fact, many of the squares and plazas? The parks that I visited in Charleston and Savannah, those are publicly funded. Whatever happened to building places like that? But oh no, our society has been conditioned to believe that sporting entertainment is somehow more exciting than ever. It's just completely insane. So it's really the brainwashing of people. But as we go on, we want to go further in the video. I don't have much time. So he talks about how the minimum wage is going to be a really big concern. I agree with him. But again, I've heard a lot of good things about increasing the minimum wage, more money in people's pockets. So, in fact, believe it or not, I guess you can say Jacob is actually more conservative than me. But nevertheless, the problem is the reason why I don't get along with a lot of people on the left is that I have these views on immigration and particularly cultural Marxism that a lot of people get freaked out. And in fact, that's one of the reasons why Jacob has not desired to interview me in person. He doesn't like my style, and some of my views may scare off a lot of the people on his channel. Because, again, he wants to make his channel as nonpartisan as possible. Now, even though that does sound reasonable, the issue is that, well, a lot of people don't really know the whole enchilada of what's going on in Vegas. Okay, and as a matter of fact, I borrow truths from many other sides. Left, right, middle, center, up, down. This is the thing. People need to borrow truths from many, many different angles. So as we digest, and by the way, the issue with the minimum wage is that it doesn't reduce rent and it doesn't solve the high income inequality, which, by the way, so-called progressives in Nevada, they don't want to solve that because they're sellouts.
So many of them can't afford this right now. And part of the reason it upsets me even more right now than normal is because a lot of you are familiar with
it was a very high rate, I can tell you that.
What had happened, right, with the airport, right? You know, that's supposed to be private money. You can raise a couple $1 million to change the name of an airport, but we can't help out some of the business owners during a pandemic. I mean, and the idea, too, is that these taxes that are going to be raised are supposed to help, right? I mean, it's supposed to be like, what, in 2019, when they had taxes raised, the sales tax went up here in Clark County. Out of Carson City, they allowed the county commissioner.
By the way, the guy who introduced this assembly bill, believe it or not, actually blocked me on his Facebook page. This is how dirty this state really is, and I'm actually considering going up there and confronting this piece of garbage. Has he done anything to fight back? Not that I know of. But you look at me right here. I have been in the county commission. I've been fighting. I've been speaking many, many times. You can see me right here. Where's Jacob? That's the thing. And you can also see that Jacob has a habit of doing these walks and tours many times and promoting real estate. And, yeah, certainly there's a lot of things I like about Summerlin. But once again, is he telling you that many of these homes have construction defects? I've talked about this, my most viewed video in my channel. Is he telling you that there are problems with the planning, design, architecture of these homes? Of course, he probably doesn't realize it, but once again, that's the problem when you don't hear truth from other sides.
If they wanted, by a vote of 2/3, to raise sales tax if they wanted. Well, our commissioners here agreed to do that because the money's supposed to go to education and social services, right?
Well, as you know, the same guy who backed the sales tax increases, Tick Sickerbloom, he told us the marijuana money was going to go to public education. He says the sales tax was going to go to education. He's also saying that airport renaming was going to be privately funded. Folks,
that's a popular tactic, right? Say the money's going to go to the children. It's going to go to the homeless. It's going to go to whatever disadvantaged group they want to hold up in front of the people and say, yes, it's going to go to them. We want to help them. Well, it was supposed to raise $54 million, but once the commission passed it here in Clark County, they opened up to other government agencies. That's what they did. It's not even going to go to the schools. And even if it goes to the schools, how much of it makes it into the classroom versus how much goes to administrators? So they hold up the children to say, oh, we need to give more money to the children, but then how much it actually makes to the children? So we can't get $54 million to go to children, but we can get hundreds of millions of dollars of public money to go to a stadium. The state can't get people their unemployment money, but they can fundraise $2 million to rename an airport. I'm sure Vicky's Diner, which was here for over 50 years on Las Vegas Boulevard, that locals and tourists alike enjoyed coming to visit. I'm sure Vicky's Diner could have used some of that private money that you can fundraise so easily for political purposes. I'm sure the Pinball Hall of Fame owner, who's doing a GoFundMe right now to try and stay in business, to move from his old location to his new location, to try to bring more people here to Vegas, which we desperately need right now. I'm sure he would have appreciated a couple $1 million being fundraised. I'll put the link down below for the GoFundMe if you guys want to contribute to that, because don't expect it to come from the government. Don't expect any help from them. So that's part of the frustration right now, is seeing the priorities completely out of whack, completely out of place from where you would think they would be. So, and I don't expect people to be perfect. I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect. It's one thing even if you just lie, if you're in office to benefit yourself, or even if you do some backdoor deal, which often happens at the federal level, or maybe you buy land out in the middle of nowhere, and then you're some politician who buys land in the middle of nowhere, and then shortly after that, the government announces plans to build something through it. Oh, wow, how convenient. Your property value goes way up, and so does your net worth, right? That'd be one thing for that. But even this, but when you actually target some of your working poor, some of your poorest people, reason is there to trust that another tax increase would be a good idea. If you're going to waste money, the money you have now, why would you just not waste more money in the future? If the habit of spending it doesn't change, it doesn't matter how much there is. It's just going to be a bigger hole and more in debt. You're just going to have the state of Nevada more in debt.
Well, let me tell you, folks, a lot of the poor people, they're easily manipulated, okay? They get government programs, they're targeted, but they play the social justice card. That's what these organizations, all these PACs do, okay? I hope he realizes this.
So, that's about it.
Jacob is probably regretting that whether moving to Vegas was a good thing. I don't know. And I want to make this very clear. I'm not trying to bash you. I feel you. I'm sometimes I've thought about that moving to Vegas was kind of not a good decision for me as well. Some people, or some signs have been brought to me to think that I'm probably making a fool out of myself. I'm wasting my time. I understand your frustration. You want to move for a better life. But maybe it would have been better if you would have done more research years ago. But a lot of us, it would have been very hard to realize that Vegas erupted in this black hole. The sad truth, of course, is that the area did not make better decisions after the rat hole that it got into about 10 years ago. As far as I know, I really appreciate what this guy has really done. I think that this is really a sign when his tone, his content has changed from more of a negative angle, a sign that Vegas is really starting to collapse. And I think he's getting frustrated. I think he's getting disappointed. And I think it's only a matter of time where he probably will just realize that maybe it's time to just bail out and move on. Maybe it's time for him to, I don't know, consider going to another state like Texas, Idaho. But here's the thing though. If you are watching his channel, okay, and I don't mean to sound jealous, but I suggest you look at other content, including the channels that I have, to tell you another angle, another opinion point of view of what's really happening in Vegas. I also provide a lot of solutions to really talk about what's going on. So you could see here, I provide a diverse group of videos, the financial system, what's going on in Vegas, the double standards culture. You could see here Red Ice. You could see here Resorts World, the lobster buffet, the protests at home builder sites. I mean, just if I were you in your position, I would also consider fighting back. Because, you spend your time, your life, and your energy in this place. Don't let people push you around and get away with it. Start fighting back like me, and maybe you can get a lot of people following you. Okay?
Kind of frustrated. So I'm a little frustrated if you guys couldn't tell. Video's like almost 20 minutes now. I didn't even expect it to go this long. And I know it was a lot to say, and I'm sure there's stuff I forgot, but those are some of the things going on in Vegas right now that are not so pretty, that have been going on really the last few years. And I think a lot more could have been done to help people who legitimately needed it. So fundraisers down below if you guys want to help the pit.
I know, it's pretty hard to believe that a place like Vegas would really turn into this kind of a mess. Yeah. As far as I know, I personally don't think that the vast majority of areas across the country are this dirty and dysfunctional. It's just unbelievable. But, maybe this COVID thing is just a way to disrupt the establishment. We will launch in something better, and we'll just hopefully move on. I mean, maybe an economic collapse is something that is needed to really not only bring a renaissance back to Vegas, but actually much of the world. But again, before I go away, I want to point out that Jacob, on the other hand, he has been doing a lot of real estate videos, and he hasn't been warning people the potential, as far as I know, that home prices, the values are overvalued. And, he's been actively promoting real estate, assuming that, it's just such a great time to buy, nothing can go wrong. But there's a lot of articles that I've seen that Vegas is probably among the most overvalued areas in the country. And when the housing market blows up, man, you are really going to be in probably not in a very comfortable position